I'm Alexander Farsan. I'm the head of climate environment for Klarna. We're an AI-powered payment and shopping assistant, payment services and shopping assistant based in Stockholm. And it's my pleasure today to host this panel, the next frontier in corporate climate leadership, extending impact beyond the value chain. And the context for the session really is that there's still, as we're making progress towards net zero, a lot of gaps in funding for critical climate solutions, and companies can play a critical role in filling this gap. And you see increasing numbers of companies going beyond reducing their own emissions to trying to finance climate solutions that are beyond their own value chain. And Klarna is one of those companies trying to show leadership. And what we found in our experience and the learnings that we've had over the last years, that it makes a critical difference what specific model you're actually following when you're trying to find the right solutions to finance and trying to find the connection points to your corporate strategy when identifying solutions. And I think that's why it's an interesting backdrop today to understand what does actually a strategy look like that's innovation-focused, impact-focused, and what type of solutions does it unlock to pursue such an approach? And to maybe, just give as a quick backdrop, what does Klarna's approach look like? So as many organizations, we have a net zero target. We'll be net zero across scope 1, 2, 3 by 2040. We're halving emissions or carbon intensity by 2030 on the way there. We're making good progress. Last year, we've reduced our emissions by 25%. But that's not enough. What we feel is that we need to actually enable global net zero by financing solutions that are outside our own value chain. And we do that by levying a carbon tax on our emissions. So we have a carbon tax that's, since this year, $200 per ton for scope 1 and 2, $100 for business travel, and $10 for scope 3. And we take this annual sort of budget that we get out of the carbon tax and make climate contributions. And I think we'll explore a little bit more what that means in the panel and how that is different from perhaps some other approaches. We've been doing this since 2021. This year, our budget that we'll put towards climate solutions is $2 million, and it's an aggregate of $7 million since. And by the end of the year, we'll be supporting 45 organizations doing high-impact climate work across areas of decarbonization. Often that will be projects around advocacy or similar, around nature protection, restoration, and a third pillar, which is carbon dioxide removal, which perhaps is one of the most underfunded areas still, if you're looking at where we need to be in 2050. And today we're very happy to announce the organizations that in 2024 have been selected, the carbon dioxide removal startups that have been identified to receive funding. There's 13 new organizations. Perhaps that's enough of a backdrop to get us into the discussion today. And maybe each of the panelists can briefly introduce themselves and say something of themselves. They can probably do it better than myself. And one quick remark. We were hoping to have Scarlett from SBTI here today. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it on short notice, but I'm hoping we can fill the gaps that she's leaving as we go. Aurélie.
Hi everyone. I'm Aurélie Gonzalez. I'm one of the startups selected by the fund. So what I'm doing is director capture. So I'm co-founder and CEO of the company. Just a few words about direct air capture. We remove CO2 from the air using a chemical process. In our case, it's an electrochemical process to go a step further in terms of energy, because that's the main problematics. We're based in France, a team of 10, and we are building our first pilot plants to deliver carbon credit and be able to sell it to the voluntary carbon credit markets, which are represented by funds such as the Klarna one, Milkywire, Frontier, and so on. Very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Natalya Yakusheva Jarlebring, and I'm fund manager for the Milkywire Climate Transformation Fund. I'll talk more about it later.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Sander de Haas. I work for Justdiggit. Justdiggit is a non-profit organization, and we work on landscape restoration in Africa. So what we do is we show that using easy-to-implement methods, farmers, pastoralists can improve their lands. Dry and degraded lands, make them green and fertile again. Communication is a crucial component in that. We inspire and educate farmers and motivate them to take action on their land. and explain the benefits that it brings to them, to the environment, and to the climate. And I've done it at a large enough scale to all of us. It's a nice scenic addition to our story.
We are changing the world.
Exactly.
We are saving the planet.
So far we've brought back over 18 million trees and dug over 500,000 water harvesting bunds in Kenya, Tanzania, and Senegal. And my role as Chief Technical Officer, Regreening expert, is to identify where can we do those types of measures, what can we do in the different landscapes, and leveraging technology to reach more people. Satellite data, drones, smartphones to reach more people and make more impact.
Great, yeah, thank you so much. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the solutions, perhaps we can start with the Climate Transformation Fund that ultimately is the vehicle for a lot of this. Natalya, you founded the Climate Transformation Fund to enable companies to take action beyond the value chain. Can you say a bit more about what the specific goals of the fund are, how it works, and perhaps also how it differs from some of the other approaches that are currently out there for corporates to take beyond value chain action?
So maybe first I'd like to start with a few words about Milkywire, so what we are. We are a tech startup that is based in Stockholm and that enables companies to invest in environmental projects to advance their sustainability goals. In 2022, together with Klarna, we launched Climate Transformation Fund, which, as by the name suggests, focus exactly on the companies beyond value chain contributions and how to maximize the positive climate impact from such contributions. And we were among the first solutions out there that offered companies practical and meaningful way to align with Science-Based Target Initiative beyond value chain mitigation recommendations, which we can talk also more about. Scarlett couldn't join us today, as Alexander mentioned, but I'll try to give a very maybe brief run-up what is actually BVCM. For those of you who are not familiar, maybe many are, but maybe many not. So basically, beyond value chain mitigation is a way for companies to take responsibility for their unabated emissions. We talk a lot about the need to decarbonize value chains, but of course there are emissions that anyway will fall outside of this logic. And someone has to take responsibility if we are to achieve global net zero. And this is a common responsibility, which means all the companies have to find the ways to step in there. And SBTi recently released 2 reports where they detail on the initial recommendations a lot of information for companies on how to sort of guides. And we at Milkywire, together with Gold Standard and more building on these recommendations, also provide more detailed sort of ways on how to establish the size of this contribution that Alexandra already mentioned today through introducing internal carbon tax. And then, of course, when we talk about companies, there are so many companies out there, so there isn't really one size fits all when it comes to this logic. So in this guide, we also go to different differentiation of different types of companies and which type of logic they can apply to determine the size of their contribution that then can be channeled to support ambitious climate actions needed to reach global net zero. And what type of actions are, maybe first I'll say a little bit, so why does beyond value chain logic even exist? Even though we recognize that we do need to decarbonize value chains right here, right now, there are also we have to think about different ways to mobilize the funding at scale as well to bring it to climate actions. So, and this is exactly what a CTF, a Climate Transformation Fund, also aims to do. So we implement so-called impact first approach, which we come with this bold statement that we try to maximize the long-term CO2 removal or reduction per dollar spent. So basically, if companies come to us, we do the work for them to select this project that has this long-term impact. And we do it within 3 different categories. Durable carbon dioxide removal, so basically all the tech solutions that need to be either tried out or bring to scale, but anyway, need these initial capital investments right here, right now. So in 10 years' time or 15 years' time, we actually have a functioning CDR market for voluntary carbon market. At the moment, it's problematic, as we also know. Then the second category is nature restoration and protection. And here you may say, okay, that doesn't sound so innovative, and we have all the credits that can cover this. But we actually believe that there are a lot of great projects in this area out there that somewhat falls outside of the logic of the more traditional carbon offsetting market, but they nevertheless need, for example, as Justdiggit, they need funding, and they do a great work, and they already today can achieve results at scale. So that's type of this kind of innovative tweaks on how we do nature restoration that we are trying to also identify and select. And finally, the last one is policy and advocacy, and also decarbonization in the areas where it will not become profitable. For example, now we have, of course, green energy transitions that are profitable. It's a market, so they don't need a philanthropic investment. But there are those areas that will not really become profitable, be it because of the local conditions or be it some other structural factors that will prevent it. And of course, there may be more sort of complex but also more interesting ones on policy and advocacy, which can be potentially very impactful if we are to enable these ambitious policies that are needed to quickly decarbonize and bring incentives on decarbonizing certain areas. There was a lot of talks yesterday around here about need to kind of change this, how, for example, different subsidies are being paid to which sectors, how all this public money is being distributed, and we believe we can play a role, or we, the organizations we support, can play a role there. So, yes, to date we have around 20 corporate partners, and with their support we to date able to support 30 projects across the 3 categories, and we are thrilled to announce an addition of 13 new CDR projects today, and nature and decarbonization projects for this year coming later in May, the announcement. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much for sort of mapping out the transformation fund and how these 3 pillars really cover all the solutions that are maybe falling through the cracks currently. Sander, you're working on one of those solutions, and you've been actually part of the first batch of organizations that have received funding through the CTF. Can you say a little bit more about Justdiggit's goals and how the funding has enabled you to do the work that you're doing, what the impact has been?
Yeah, of course. So indeed, we were very happy with the funds that we received from CTF. And we're very thankful to CTF and Klarna and Milkywire on that, as it allowed us to scale our work in Tanzania. What we do in Tanzania is we promote agroforestry to smallholder farmers. Agroforestry is getting more trees on your land. And we're not giving trees to farmers, we're not buying their land, we're not paying them to plant trees. No, we're using communication to inspire them and educate them and tell them and learn them about the benefits that those trees can bring to them, to their crop yields, and to the environment. So it's, in the end, up to them whether or not they want to do it, and we're not asking for anything in return. This way, we've been able to bring back 18 million trees in just a couple of years' time. And I think the beauty is that CTF understands that this way of working, where we're not asking for anything in return, is crucial for the success of such a program. If we would have to go into carbon credits, for example, we'd have to sign contracts with all these hundreds of thousands individual farmers and communities, and that changes the whole perspective for them. Now we can explain them the benefits, and they can decide themselves whether or not they want to do it, and a lot of them they do. If we set up a contract with them, then it changes the perspective for them. Well, am I the one benefiting, as Justdiggit is claiming, or is this international organization that I'm signing this contract with the one that's benefiting? And that changes the perspective and in my belief, the effectiveness of our approach and the scalability of it. So now it's clear. They own the land, they own the trees, they own the carbon, and it's up to them whether or not they want to do it. And that doesn't mean that we're not interested in the amount of carbon that's being sequestered. We are, and we are monitoring that, we are measuring it, and we're communicating around that, also to our partners and to our donors. It's just we can't claim ownership. We can communicate with this donation. You've managed to sequester so much carbon in this project, but the carbon is not yours. It's not ours. It's the landowners. And we believe this is a way more effective and scalable approach, and thankful to the CTF that allows us to operate in this manner.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really impressive to see the work and being able to sort of have an impact without commoditizing the impact. It's a really powerful story, and it's great to get the updates regularly. Aurélie, you're one of the companies that have been awarded funding this year from the CTF. Congratulations, first of all. Can you say a little bit more about why carbon dioxide removal is an important solution that is going to contribute to global net zero, and what role Yama's solution plays within that?
Of course. So if we come back to the main problematic, we have, of course, to divide by 2 the emission from the industry, transportation, and so on. So we are talking about 20 billion tons of CO2 that we have to decarbonize. And then there is also already in the atmosphere 2,000 gigatons of CO2, which are over-emitted since the beginning of the industrialization revolution. That's why you don't feel it, but it's almost +1 degrees in the world, right? So just to say that those emissions, they will continue to be emitted until the point that we are net zero. And according to the IPCC, if we want to stay below the 1.5 degree, which is the less catastrophic scenarios, as you know, as I said, we are already +1 degrees almost, we need to remove CO2 from the air. And there are different ways to do it. We have to plant trees, but we can't only do that. There are not enough space. We have also to deploy technological solutions which are more efficient. And for example, direct air capture is about normally at scale to be able to remove 1 billion of tons of CO2 per year by 2050 to help those emissions to stay at the end net zero. Such technology is normally able to scale, but it's not a tree. It's 4,000 more efficient, but that's use energy. And this is the whole challenge about direct air capture, is to decrease drastically consumption of energy to get that scale. And for that, we need funds, we need traction, we need investors to help us to deploy the technology. So all this market has to be moving together. But that's only one of the technology, right? We have to remove 5 to 10 billion tons of CO2. DAC is one. Trees are far less, let's say, and there are other technologies. But we have to put money in all of that. We have to help every technology to deploy. And we are talking about $1 billion of market, $1 billion of investment, and it has to be done now if we really want to match with this target of 1.5 degrees.
Great, yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for understanding a bit more about what each of your organization does and how it fits into the picture. I think we've heard already a little bit about where maybe some of the cracks are that some of the organizations that you work for can fall through in the current system. So if you take your unique perspective, what do you see as some of the main barriers that are in the way of your organization dramatically increasing its impact? I don't know who would like to go first.
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah. So I think that for us, there are 3 sort of points that are crucial there. So I think overall awareness, how companies can do their contribution beyond engaging with the traditional kind of carbon offsets, is actually quite low still. And yes, of course, here we hear a lot like from those who are climate leaders and climate champions, and maybe then you don't have to convince them on this. But then there are a lot of companies out there that have heard, you know, okay, we should do probably carbon credits, we should be doing something, but then carbon credits seem to be also so politicized at the moment, and there is so much uncertainty, then we kind of really unsure what can we do else. And we find ourselves spending quite a lot of time and resources just educating and kind of going out there and presenting there are other ways to do it. The second point, I think, for me, from our perspective, is also this data and MRV. So we get a lot of these questions. How do we know it works? What type of metrics we get? And don't get us wrong, we do consider it's a very important topic and crucial for us to crack in order to understand and track the success of our solutions. But at the same time, data costs money and someone has to pay for it. And we are on the quest to find this cost-efficient way to present the data or to kind of increase the credibility of these projects, but at the same time don't spend, I don't know, half of our budget on tracking this data across, let's say, direct air capture and policy advocacy projects. As you also understand, the needs are very different, and how the way you assess and track this data would be also very, very different. And finally, the third point I'd like to talk about is communication and credibility. The companies, I think, even those who really want to engage, they are a little bit anxious and conscious about how can they talk about it, what can they talk, how they portray their contributions, what it is and what it is not. And we provide them with such toolkits and recommendations on how they can talk about their contributions. But yeah, it's probably these three.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think very great points, Natalya. I think from a Justdiggit perspective, yes, there's definitely barriers and challenges, but first of all, we're very proud of what we've been achieving, the successes so far, but we want more. And we believe we need more to keep the world a livable place. And we believe that's possible, especially thanks to technology, also in rural Africa. About 20 to 30% of smallholder farmers in rural Africa have access to a smartphone and internet. And we believe if we can reach those people and learn and inspire them to take action, it can really make a huge impact. So that's what we're doing. We're developing a smartphone app for farmers that's fun and engaging to do, and that tells them in a personalized way based on their GPS location and in big data, maps, satellite information, this is what you can do on your land. These are the methods that work for you, and then really take them by the hand in a step-by-step manner on how they can implement those easy approaches, and learn them the benefits that it can bring them, and track those benefits, again, using the smartphone, photos, and GPS. So we believe it's a very scalable approach. It's very cost-effective. We can reach millions of people throughout Africa using technology only, way cheaper than traditional programs. And the first tests so far have been very promising. People love the concept. They're very eager to learn. And we've proven that using a smartphone only as a tutor, people can implement it in the correct way. So it's all looking wonderful. Only the challenge is how to get funding for this. Funding has been proven difficult. We have traditional funders on the one hand, and they seek traditional programs, which have a clear defined project boundary and a clearly defined target audience. On the other hand, we have tech funders and investors, and to them, nature-based solutions in Africa is just often out of their focus. So although we believe we have an approach that can really revolutionize nature-based solutions and land restoration, it's been proving difficult to get adequate funding to really bring this to the scale that we believe is needed and believe is possible.
Great, thank you.
And I would say from my perspective as being a developer of technology, which is an emerging one, so direct air capture exists since 10 years, but it can't really scale because it consumes too much energy. So we are emerging and we are dividing by 6 the energy. And if you want one day to have big plants sucking CO2 from the air and sequestering that, we would need to put money. So from my perspective, I need to be attractive for investors. And there are 2 ways to do it. Whether you have regulation, so we have like an obligation from the states putting a price per ton of CO2 for CO2 removal. So, for example, we have that for the decarbonization side. It's called the obligatory market. It doesn't exist right now for the Scope 3 emission. So everything is about traction and the voluntary carbon market. If I want to attract investors, I want to show that I have offtake, that someone is buying my CO2. And this is what we're talking about today. We're not talking about the states, but the clients. This market is today not a liquid market. It should be one day a commodity market. When you guys want 1 ton of CO2, I'm able to deliver 1 ton of CO2. Today, this is clearly a market where we can see trees, we can see technologies like us. A tree is $5 per ton. My technology today is $2,000 per ton. And I need to go from $2,000 per ton to $100 per ton. So how do I make that happen? I need money, I need investors, I need attraction. So I need offtakes, and I also need all the corporates. And this, I would say that the today barrier, if I really want to answer the question on the traction side, to be able to attract with a stable price, because carbon credit, as I said, are different from different solutions. It's not like nickel, right? It's like coffee. Coffee at the beginning was different. We had needed to blend it to make one price of coffee, right? That's a commodity market. So if I want to, at some point, sell my carbon credit and get funding, we probably need to blend this approach and to make the corporates to really claim and agree on a price which is far higher than $5 per ton, not 2,000, but maybe a blend around 500, and everyone should go that way. So take engagement into stable volume and a price which is fair, not my best price, not the best price for trees, but at some point we need to make this market a real commodity, right? So my main barrier is that corporates need to show that they can make it and they can really engage themselves in several years so I can attract my investors to deploy my technology at that scale. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. I think the key themes here really are in line with the conference. I think there's a need for innovation of technology, innovation of market structures, innovation of the sort of voluntary frameworks and regulation, and funding. How do you unlock funding for these solutions? Definitely big barriers, but we'll be looking forward to working with you on them. I think now maybe to end the panel on a positive note, I'd like you to take a more forward-looking, global, positive perspective. Put yourself in the shoes, it's 2030. Against all odds, we have actually managed to reduce emissions by 50%. We're on track to meeting the Paris goals. What was the secret ingredient that allowed us to make this shift from where we are tracking currently?
Well, if I talk about our field of work, landscape restoration, it's putting land users at the core. So it should be about the benefits that the projects, the approaches have on the farmers, the pastoralists, those that live on the land and live off the land. It should not be just about tons of carbon and other metrics. They're important as well, but it should also be about the beneficiaries. And I believe only then, if we put the land users, the land owners at the core, we can really let the projects grow beyond their project boundaries and beyond their project budgets and really thrive. So I think that's the approach, putting users at the core.
Thank you.
I think from our perspective is that we stopped arguing what type of actions are needed, what type of actions is better, and simply implemented more of everything, because that's what we need right now. And while implementing this, we actually did put people and nature in focus too, especially those who are on front lines of this climate change, because we cannot do it with forgetting about this justice component too. So I think that would be.
Thank you.
And from my perspective, I think I would say that what is happening today in the US is that there is not like regulation, but an incentive to like clean the air, right? Today, with the IRA, the 45Q, you can be paid $150 per ton of CO2 to capture and sequester the CO2 underground. So this approach, it would be deployed everywhere in the world, would really, really help the market to deploy. And that is through states, right? So it means that all the states, all the governments should really put budget on the topic. And this money is coming from citizens, is coming from companies. So it's another way to use the money of the people and of the companies to help this technology to deploy, not with like a regulation because it's a constraint, but more with business incentive. And as soon as you have a market where you have price and you're paid by design by your state to capture CO2, I can assure you that investor will put money on the technology. So it has to come like hand in hand.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. I think that was a great note to end the panel on. Perhaps a more positive outlook of where we might be going if we do certain things right. Thanks so much for your insights today. Thanks all of you for your time. And if there's any questions about our work, CTF will be floating around, so please reach out and we'll be happy to chat. Thank you.
Thank you.